Good evening. Welcome to our daily devotional reading. I hope you had a good Sunday. If it was at all as relaxed as mine, then you probably don't need to relax into your body. You need to wake up a bit, which is what I need to do. Let's open our minds. Concentrate. Pay attention to Plato and see what he has to say today. And now he, Socrates, said, "Let us begin again, and do not answer my question in the words in which I ask it. Let me have not the old safe answer of which I spoke at first, but another equally safe, of which the truth will be inferred by you from what has been just said. I mean that if anyone asks you what that is, of which the inherence makes the body hot, you will reply, not heat. This is what I call the safe and stupid answer, but fire, a far superior answer, which we are now in a condition to give. Or if anyone asks you why a body is diseased, you will not say from disease, but from fever. And instead of saying that oddness is the cause of odd numbers, you will say that the monad is the cause of them. And so of things in general, as I dare say that you will understand sufficiently without my adducing any further examples." "Yes," he said, "I quite understand you. Tell me then, what is that of which the inherence will render the body alive?" "The soul," he replied. "And is this always the case?" "Yes," he said, "of course." "Then whatever the soul possesses, to that she comes bearing life." "Yes, certainly." "And is there any opposite to life?" "There is," he said. "And what is that?" "Death." "Then the soul, as has been acknowledged, will never receive the opposite of what she brings." "Impossible," replied Sebes. "And now," he said, "what did we just now call the principle which repels the even?" "The odd." "And that principle which repels the musical or the just, the unmusical," he said, "and the unjust." "And what do we call the principle which does not admit of death?" "The immortal," he said. "And does the soul admit of death?" "No." "Then the soul is immortal." "Yes," he said. "And may we say that this has been proven?" "Yes, abundantly proven, Socrates," he replied. "Supposing that the odd were imperishable, must not free be imperishable?" "Of course." "And if that which is cold were imperishable, when the warm principle came attacking the snow, must not the snow have retired whole and unmelted, for it could never have perished, nor could it have remained and admitted the heat?" "True," he said. "Again, if the uncooling or warm principle were imperishable, the fire, when assailed by cold, would not have perished or have been extinguished, but would have gone away unaffected." "Certainly," he said. "And the same may be said of the immortal. If the immortal is also imperishable, the soul, when attacked by death, cannot perish. For the preceding argument shows that the soul will not admit of death, or ever be dead, any more than free or the odd number will admit of the even, or fire, or the heart in the fire of the cold. Yet a person may say, but although the odd will not become even at the approach of the even, why may not the odd perish and the even take the place of the odd? Now to him who makes this objection we cannot answer that the odd principle is imperishable, for this has not been acknowledged. But if this had been acknowledged, there would have been no difficulty in contending that at the approach of the even the odd principle and the number 3 took their departure, and the same argument would have held good of the fire and heat and any other thing. And the same may be said of the immortal. If the immortal is also imperishable, then the soul will be imperishable as well as immortal. But if not, some other proof of her imperishableness will have to be given. No other proof is needed, he said, for if the immortal, being eternal, is liable to perish, then nothing is imperishable. Yes, replied Socrates, and yet all men will agree that God and the essential form of life and the immortal in general will never perish. That was just a cough, but very timely so. Yes, all men, he said, that is true, and what is more, gods, if I am not mistaken, as well as men. Seeing then that the immortal is indestructible, must not the soul, if she is immortal, be also imperishable? Most certainly. Then when death attacks a man, the immortal portion of him may be supposed to die. But the immortal retires at the approach of death and is preserved safe and sound. True. Then Sebes, beyond question, the soul is immortal and imperishable, and our souls will truly exist in another world. I am convinced, Socrates, said Sebes, and have nothing more to object. But if my friend Simmias or anyone else has any further objection to make, he had better speak out, and not keep silence, since I do not know to what other season he can defer the discussion, if there is anything which he wants to say or to have said. Reminder that this is Socrates' death day. But I have nothing more to say, replied Simmias, nor can I see any reason for doubt after what the greatness after what has been said, but I still feel and cannot help feeling uncertain in my own mind when I think of the greatness of the subject and the feebleness of man. Well said, Simmias. Yes, Simmias, replied Socrates, that is well said. By God, I'm becoming like this, by like the sage. And I may add that first principles, even if they appear certain, should be carefully considered, and when they are satisfactorily ascertained, then with a sort of hesitating confidence in human reason, you may, I think, follow the course of the argument, And if that be plain and clear, there will be no need for any further inquiry. Very true. But then, oh my friends, he said, if the soul is really immortal, what care should be taken of her? Not only in respect of the portion of time which is called life, but of eternity. And the danger of neglecting her from this point of view does indeed appear to be awful. If death had only been the end of all, the wicked would have had a good bargain in dying, for they would have been happily quit not only of their body, but of their own evil together with their souls. But now, inasmuch as the soul is manifestly immortal, there is no release or salvation from evil, except the attainment of the highest virtue and wisdom. For the soul, when on her progress to the world below, takes nothing with her but nurture and education, and these are said greatly to benefit or greatly to injure the departed at the very beginning of this journey thither. For after death, as they say, the genius of each individual, the genius, the daimon, the spirit guide of each individual to whom he belonged in life, leads him to a certain place in which the dead are gathered together, whence after judgment has been given they pass into the world below, following the guide, who is appointed to conduct them from this world to the other. And when they have there received their due and remained their time, another guide brings them back again after many revolution of ages. Now this way to the other world is not, as Aeschylus says in Telephus, a single and straight path. If that were so, no guide would be needed, for no one could miss it. But there are many partings of the road, and windings, as I infer from the rites and sacrifices which are offered to the gods below, in places where three ways meet on earth. The wise and orderly soul follows the straight path and is conscious of her surroundings. But the soul which desires the body, and which, as I was relating before, has long been fluttering about the lifeless frame and the world of sight, is after many struggles and many sufferings hardly and with violence carried away by her attendant genius. And when she arrives at the place where the other souls are gathered, if she be impure and have done impure deeds, whether foul, murderous, or other crimes which are the brothers of these, and the works of brothers in crime, from that very soul every one flees and turns away. No one will be her companion, no one her guide, but alone she wanders in the extremity of evil until certain times are fulfilled. And when they are fulfilled, she is borne irresistibly to her own fitting habitation, as every pure and just soul which has passed through life in the company and under the guidance of the gods has also her own proper home. Now the earth has diverse and wonderful regions, and is indeed in nature and extent very unlike the notions of geographers, as I believe on the authority of one who shall be nameless. What do you mean, Socrates? Said Simmias. I have myself heard many descriptions of the earth, but I do not know and should very much like to know in which of these you put faith. And I, Simmias, replied Socrates, if I had the art of Glaucus, would tell you. Is Glaucus the one with the ring? Although I know not the art of Glaucus could prove... No, he's the one... Okay, he's the one who dies in the final myth. Could prove the truth of my tale, which I myself should never be able to prove, and even if I could, I fear, Simmias, that my life would come to an end before the argument was completed. I may describe to you, however, the form and regions of the earth according to my conception of them. That, said Simmias, will be enough. Well then, he said, my conviction is that the earth is a round body in the center of the heavens, and therefore has no need of air or any similar force to be a support, but is kept there and hindered from falling or inclining any way by the equability of the surrounding heaven and by her own equipoise. For that which, being in equipoise, is in the center of that which is equably diffused, will not incline any way in any degree, but will always remain in the same state and not deviate. And this is my first notion. Which is surely a correct one, said Simmias. Also, I believe that the earth is very vast, and that we who dwell in the region extending from the river Phaedo to the pillars of Heracles inhabit a small portion only about the sea, like ants or frogs about a marsh, and that there are other inhabitants on many other like places. For everywhere on the face of the earth there are hollows of various forms and sizes into which the water and the mist and the lower air collect. But the true earth is pure and situated in the pure heaven. There are the stars also, and it is the heaven which is commonly spoken of by us as the ether, and of which our own earth is the sediment gathering in the hollows beneath. But we who live in these hollows are deceived into the notion that we are dwelling above on the surface of the earth, which is just as if a creature who was at the bottom of the sea were to fancy that he was on the surface of the water, and that the sea was the heaven through which he saw the sun and the other stars, he having never come to the surface by reason of his feebleness and sluggishness, and having never lifted up his head and seen, nor ever heard from one who had seen, how much purer and fairer the world above is than his own. And such is exactly our case. For we are dwelling in a hollow of the earth, and fancy that we are on the surface. And the air we call the heaven in which we imagine that the stars move, but the fact is that owing to our feebleness and sluggishness, we are prevented from reaching the surface of the air. For if any man could arrive at the exterior limit, or take the wings of the bird and come to the top, then like a fish who puts his head out of the water and sees this world, he would see a world beyond. And if the nature of man could sustain the sight, he would acknowledge that this other world was the place of the true heaven, and the true light, and the true earth. For our earth and the stones and the entire region which surrounds us are spoiled and corroded, as in the sea all things are corroded by the brine. Neither is there any noble or perfect growth, but caverns only, and sand and an endless slough of mud. And even the shore is not to be compared to the fairer sights of this world. And still less is this our world to be compared with the other, of the upper world, earth, which is under the heaven. I can tell you a charming tale, Simmias, which is well worth hearing. And we, Socrates, replied Simmias, shall be charmed to listen to you. Thus far our scripture for the evening. It is interesting that he uses the word "we shall be charmed by you." It refers back, I think, to the beginning almost of the dialogue, where Socrates is saying that they need someone to sing them charms, to take away their fear of death. And so this is kind of funny to me, because it's almost then as if Plato is saying Socrates is telling them stories as one would a child, to ease them, to calm them, and to help them cope with his passing. Many, well, not many, but a couple of science fiction books came to mind as I was reading the final part. I can't remember any of its names. My fiction books are on another shelf that I can't see. One is where they travel to the middle of the earth. It might just be Middle Earth. That came to mind. And then Children of Darkness, I think, is the other one, where a child finds people, a whole society living under the earth. And then, of course, Plato's own myth of the cave came to mind. I don't know if he's referring to that here, but it does come to mind. I cannot help feeling uncertain in my own mind when I think of the greatness of the subject and the feebleness of man. Speaking of the immortality of the soul and what happens after our bodies die. What is death even? I know one of the ways that the Christian tradition justifies the fact that Adam and Eve did not really die when they ate the fruit, and hence the snake spoke the truth, which was iterated by God in the story immediately afterwards. You shall not die, but you will become like he is, in that you will know good and evil. Is that they were, because death is separation from God. Just as death on one level, on the highest level, and on the other level, death is separation between the body and the soul. So this is a very old and common, and we see it in many, many religions. When we read about the rites for after death, of course, the Egyptian myths had to come to mind. They had very elaborate, basically, the Book of the Dead is all about that, what to do after you're dead, to find your way in the underworld. So it's not a strange thing at all, this idea that your soul will go on a journey after you die. Jeez. But when I was a Christian and starting to question everything, I came to the conclusion that there is no way that the soul, if it were to live after death, could have not existed before birth. That's just ridiculous to think my parents had sex and then there's this being now that is immortal and imperishable. The soul. It makes a little bit more sense that there's a soul that is repeatedly incarnated. That makes more sense, actually. And honestly, there are times when I actually what is it when you say you? Oh man, my words are gone today. I spent the whole day reading almost, so it's very strange. Where I entertain the idea that this is not the first time I saw this Benia. Mostly because I've mentioned previously I have so many soulmates. And with a number of them, it felt the first time that we met as if we knew each other. And the ones that I had those connections is friends throughout life. Even if we don't speak for a while, we will reconnect like that, like we're used to being separated and return to each other. I like the idea, and maybe it's true, who knows? Maybe it's true that we live in a simulation and somebody is playing me. My personal theory is that, if I have a theory at all, is that we're all pets of a sort, of higher beings. Because that would explain why some people have good lives and other people have bad lives. Odds are there is no such thing as an immortal soul. I'm, in any event, very, very inclined to think that nothing is imperishable, eventually. So what do we do then? Well, one thing we could do is, instead of waiting to go on the adventure of finding the right path after death, is we can go on the adventure here and now. Whatever that might look like for you. An adventure to finding truth, wisdom. Recently, I can't remember when, I recalled the fact that since I can remember, and if I'm correct in how I interpret the stories that I've been told about before I can remember, I've always been obsessed with knowledge, insight, and wisdom. And that's my adventure. And as long as I can keep it up, this imaginary monastery, I'm taking you on the adventure with me. It might very well be a dead end. I've been on adventures before which ended in dead ends. And quite frankly, it has become what I am expecting, a dead end. But hey, you have to entertain yourself somehow. I don't really believe in the immortality of the soul, but I do believe in the collective, if that makes sense, in humanity. And I wrote down the importance of the soul being redirected to her. I personally think being so concerned with the meaning of your life, the meaning of life, is a side effect of our extreme individualistic and narcissistic culture. Sorry for using two terms that's overused. And I believe we're at a turning point. And so I'm curious what that's going to be. I have a very strong sense of destiny. I've always had that. So much so that my master thesis was on Providentia Dei, the providence of God, and how he steers our lives. And then, after I lost my faith, I found Robert Sapolsky and the more naturalistic idea of everything being determined. If someone enters my sanctuary, there is on the arch above my entrance written, not none shall enter here who do not know mathematics, although maybe I should add that, but amor fati. You can only enter the sanctuary the monastery in real life when you accept your fate. May you have eudaimonia, a good daimon, a good spirit guide. And may your spirit guide be devoted to Sophia. And thus, May the spirit of Sophia be with you.